But anyway, well, if you are new to us, one thing we like to do here is recap each episode. We cut that recap out, host it separately on YouTube for your viewing pleasure and convenience. And if you're interested in hearing the full discussion that we have, check the discussion box, not the discussion box, the
Comment
description.
section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One over the other. The link to the full podcast will be
I
there.
clearly don't know either. I mean, yeah, okay. Description. That's right. We got it.
So yeah, but without further ado, I guess we'll hop in to said recap of episode 39 of Critical Role Campaign 3, The Momentum of Murder. So, we pick up with Bell's Hells having found the body of Esteros and his collection of letters, and they basically are sitting there trying to decide how to best handle delivering them. After a bit of back and forth, Imogen decides to send a message to Mistress Sasandri and tells her basically what happened. They found Esteros, they arrived at his house, and it was in shambles, and he has passed away. She also says that the body's still there and that the party has a letter for her. Sasandri responds and asks to meet with them at a place of Imogen's choosing. So Imogen says, come meet us at our hotel room, the Spire by Fire, room 69, of course. Meanwhile, FCG sends a message to Evelyn, who is, Esteros's butler kind of assistant, and basically lets her know, hey, like something went down, you're probably in danger, like just stay safe, definitely don't go to the house. And Evelyn responds and is like, okay, thank you. And she actually is like, I hope Esteros is okay. So they kind of FCG forgot to convey the fact that Esteros passed, but they don't
I love
tell her now.
I love everyone was like, ooh,
word.
Yeah.
But yeah, they decide that that's probably information better passed along in person. So FCG does not correct this mistake. The party then checks in with Laudna, who is grateful for everyone for what they went through to bring her back, and just happy family moment. But Fern then asks about the necklace that she took from their little spirit realm journey. But she goes to reach for it and finds that it has vanished. So items from that little experience do not translate into the material world. But Laudna says it was probably just a necklace that her father gave to her mother. The party's in like, hey, actually, is your name Matilda? And she reveals that her name was once Matilda Bradbury, but now she's just Laudna. She forgot who she was, running from town to town, being called horrible things, being chased by people. So she just wants to be called Laudna now.
Mm-hmm.
And then she asks, Marisha basically asks Matt, can Laudna still hear Delilah at all? And Matt's like, you don't hear anything. She's not like an engine running. So, you don't hear anything, but you're not sure if she's gone or not. And so then the party is like, well, do you still have your abilities? Can you still, cast those spells? And so she decides to test it with an Eldritch Blast on Ashton. It works. The magic smashes him in the face, and Imogen says, well, hey, you know what? You had special powers before Delilah, so this doesn't necessarily mean anything. Maybe Delilah just focused that power. And as they're having this discussion, a knock comes at the door, and it's the Green Seekers, Gus and Ollie, and they've been sent by Mr. Sasandri to investigate the death of Esteros. The Green Seekers tell them, like, hey, you're the number one suspects here. You need to come with us for some questioning. And they're kind of just having this conversation through the crack of a door at this point. So since this is going down, Chetney's like, oh, crap, we should have read the letter to Sasandri before, so we could find out more. So he rips open that letter really quick and skims through it and basically finds out that Esteros was going to tell her that, hey, Bell's Hells this is what they're working on. This is what they've found out. Basically stay out of their way. Like they're good guys, basically, essentially. So then they mend the letter so it doesn't look like they've read it, and then open up the rest of the door. Green Seekers come in and they're like, all right, follow us. And they lead the party with a it's not just them, they also have some wilder
like
guards.
Like an armed guard or something,
escorting them back through the city. So they arrive back at the Esteros Manor. Mr. Sasandri is here along with more guards and also this woman with pale skin, silver gray hair,
no eyebrows.
No eyebrows, gaunt, not elvish. She is human, but just a very kind of strange looking human. Um, FCG is uncomfortable with how she's interacting with Estros's body. She's like kneeled over, kind of interacting with his corpse. And he basically says as much. And she's like, "This is all done with respect. This is my job." And she pulls out a golden beaked sun pendant that marks her as a follower of the Dusk Maven. And then Shisadri introduces her as grave mystic Weva Vudal. And she begins basically casting Speak with Dead on Estros's body. And begins to ask him 5 questions. I'm going to run through those very quickly. She asks, "When did you die?" And he says, "Not but a day before." "How did you die?" "I was killed by the legend." "Who was this legend?" "The legend of the peaks, Odahan Thul." "And these strangers, Bells Hells, were they responsible for your death?" "No." "And do you have any final requests?" And it's to be buried next to Mistress Prudage. Sasadri then apologizes to Bells Hells and says, like, "Okay, clearly this wasn't you. Sorry. Um, don't worry, I'll take care of his final burial wishes. Green Seekers, you can stop investigating Bells Hells, but turn your attention to Odahan Thule." And then Gus is like, "Yeah, about that. No thanks."
No.
That's a little above our pay grade. He basically says, "We're not bounty hunters." So Sasadri is like, turns to Bells Hells and is like, "Are you interested?" And of course they are. So she says, "Consider this your second contract, the first having been Treshy." So she wants them to basically hunt her down, essentially. Um, Bells Hells asks, though, why did Estros refer to her as the Legend? And they then discuss how she had the title The Legend of the Peaks and learn about her accolades during the Apex War fighting for the Stratus Throne. She's basically a nightmare of the Coven Peaks, and that's how she earned the nickname. And Imogen, having grown up in that area of the world, recalls the war happening when she was a child. Um, Anyway, the party then gives Shisadri her letter from Estros and also tells her about how Estros gave them his airship. And Shisadri says, "Okay, I'll make sure that transfer of ownership goes over smoothly for you." And then they hand over the rest of the letters as well, trusting her to distribute them out. Before everyone heads out, though, Weva looks at Laudna curiously and introduces herself. And Weva says, like, "I see something in you, something that she's seen before in her line of work," and basically says, "Welcome back," implying that she can tell she's newly like
Right.
resurrected. Imogen then mentally telepathically communicates with her and is like, "Hey, wait, like, what'd you see in my friend?" And or like, "What else did you see?" And Wave was like, "I don't know what that means. Like, what should I be looking for? What is going on with you guys?" And Imogen's like, "Well, maybe we can talk about it more in depth at a later time." And Wave was like, "Yeah, people die all the time. I'm sure we'll meet again." The party then give their final goodbyes to Estros, starting with Fern picking his pockets, but she doesn't find anything. Because of that, though, Laudna's like, "Oh, we should get his spices. We can make that cookie recipe." And Chetney's like, "Maybe we don't do that in the massively booby trapped house." But Laudna's like, "No, I need the sentimental spices." So she sends Pate on like a covert op to go retrieve them. He successfully does. Um, so they have Estros's spice rack essentially. Imogen's kind of says her goodbye and says that they will get vengeance for him. Orem grabs a dagger from the wall, like in the chaos of the battle, and puts it back in Estros's boot holster. And that's basically say their final goodbyes. Ashton also grabs, I think it's like a small eagle or a small griffin Matt described
Yeah.
from the place, and kind of snags that as a token as well. Party then returns to the Soot and Swill Tavern, nabs 2 rooms, and quickly go to bed for the night. The next morning, though, Orem tells everybody how he smelled that resurrection poison on Estros's weapon, and basically fills them in that that's what's going on here. The party's in like, well, let's take a look at that. So they have FCG use his identify spell slash kind of a medicine check to inspect this coagulated blood slash poison that's still on the cane. And Sam actually rolls a net 20. So Matt describes that FCG, having had this past life, if you will, long ago, has this memory bank of all of these poisons. And even though he has that, he has no idea what this is. It seems something not of this world. And so Imogen's like, maybe it's from the moon. So that was the medicine half of it. The identify half of it comes through that the cane's magical, and it can transform into a scythe blade with that command word. Both Chetney and Ashton are interested in it, but before they kind of make any final decisions on who's going to get it, the party heads downstairs for breakfast. They catch up with Pretty, the ogre, who is the cook here. He catches us up on his love life, which is that he hasn't found anybody yet, but he's exploring options. And he actually gives the party some extra special spices to make their breakfast even more delicious. And basically, that's where we go to break.
All right, great job, man. So coming back from the break, the party, they've pretty much set themselves on like what's next in our journey, and like the most obvious data point is Eos. They know that that's where they're going to find out more information about this whole Ruidus thing, Imogen's backstory, and they suspect that there might even be a shared end goal with Thule, with Eos as well. So they decide to make their way up to the port of the city and basically jump on the Silver Sun and start on their journey. So they make their way up. They meet the port captain Tang, and there's kind of like a funny dialogue of Laura Bailey's confused as to who they're looking for exactly. And so it's not even worth mentioning, actually. But point being, they get back on the Silver Sun. They talk to the first mate and eventually Xandis, and are like, hey, how's the ship doing? And Xandis is like, it's good. There's still some things we're working on. There's still some like broken mass and things like that. We've only been here for a few days, but we are ready to go. The party, however, is they still have a little bit of shopping they want to do. More importantly, they want to get more diamonds, possibly because they don't want to get into a situation they were in before with Thule. But specifically, Imogen really wants a 400 gold, a ruby worth 400 gold. And there's this interesting dialogue where Matt's like, all right, do you want to delay leaving to go get it? And she's like, no, it's okay. Bottom line, where the party eventually ends up on is, no, let's delay. Let's get our materials because we don't know what this journey is going to be like. So they actually delay the trip like a couple of minutes, but like another day and a half of like role play time, so that Imogen can get her ruby. They get the diamonds, and then also FGG asks for to find a commemorative coin worth 25 gold pieces. So not 25 gold pieces, a commemorative coin worth that. And I think specifically he's given a coin that's emblazoned with the symbol of the variant coin stores of Dumont, once used as an emblem 20 years ago. It's a memorial coin of a point in history, and he adds it to his inventory, oddly enough. Talking with Xandis on like what's the trip going to be like, he says, well, it's about 1,100 miles away to get to Eos, and it's going to take about 11 days. And we're going to go basically around the Hellcatch Valley through the Ashanador. And there's even some dialogue from like Chetney and Ormond, like maybe we should go see the Gorgini, the wilds and the jungles that they're housed in, basically. And like, yeah, we can maybe make a little shortcut. But they talk about how it feels like Thule is really right on their tail, or maybe even past them. And so they decide that it might actually be better to just cut through the Hellcatch Valley, shave off a few days of their trip to get there quicker. And they actually asked Xandis, like, is this a good idea? And he's like, well, it's the Hellcatch Valley. So basically says like pretty much no, but it's an option if that's what you want to do. So all that to say, they set sail. There is kind of this role play scene of Matt being like, okay, it's day 1, day 2, day 3, someone roll a D20 for me. They unfortunately come across another dust storm, similar to the one several episodes ago that threw them from the ship. And Matt kind of jokingly was like, okay, yeah, here we go again. Everyone give me a strength check. And everyone rolls pretty awful. I think Laudna with a -2 to strength rolls a 17. And Ashton rolls a 22. Everyone else rolled like a 3, a 4, and a 5. And like Fern rolled a 1. So Ashton's like, what is wrong with you guys? So fortunately, this time they were prepared. They had tied themselves to the ship. They do get thrown around and take some damage, but no one gets launched off. And the day continues. The most important part, though, of this journey is around, I think maybe the 4th or 5th day. It's late at night. Ruidus is flaring, and two things happen. And I'll talk about the first one, then the second one. First thing that happens is Chetney feels what Matt describes as this deep, irresistible itch, and he basically tears off his skin and becomes his werewolf form. Fern and Orem are on watch with them, and Orem's immediately like, "Chetney, are you good, buddy?" And combat ensues, and actually Chetney attacks them. There's some really awesome role play from Liam. He's always such a great fighter on how he describes his attacks. Basically does a bait and switch with Fern and does a goading attack to create disadvantage against Fern, and then also uses an ability to raise his AC to a 27. After a couple of rounds, they actually knock him out of like this ruinous haze. But another feature of Chetney's character is that when he drops below a certain number of hit points, he has to do a wisdom saving throw or his feral instincts take over. So he's below those hit points. He rolls a wisdom saving throw, rolls a 4, and combat ensues again. So they have to fight again. And all that to say, they finally knock him out of it. And don't knock him out, but just knock him out of it as the flare sort of subsides. And he's like, sorry, oops, my bad. And they talk about maybe like keeping watch with him, like going to sleep with him. And Fern's like, I would offer, but I'm afraid you might kill me in my sleep. So he's like, that's fair. The second thing that happens during this flare is down in the ship, Imogen is having another dream. And she's having a dream of, that red dust storm. And she thinks she sees Laudna in the distance, facing away with her like wind whipping in the wind whipping, hair whipping in the wind. She goes after her, grabs her, realizes that it's actually like a tattered veil, and the person turns, and it is her mother. First time we've seen this character before. And the mother immediately says the same thing we've always heard her say, which is, Imogen, run. You have to run. Then she's, pulled away in the wind, and Imogen immediately, she flies up into the air above the storm. She sees Ruidus. She calls out for Thule. Are you here? There's no response. The flare ends, and then Imogen actually loses her ability to fly, her power, and she falls back into the storm. And right before she hits the ground, boom, she wakes up. And in the final moments of the episode, now that she's seen her mother, she casts Sending, and she says, Mother, are you there? And there's a silence. And then she hears back, Imogen? And that is where the episode ends. So crazy ending for the episode. Episode 39, the momentum of murder of campaign 3. And again, that's the end of our recap. And we're going to talk about the episode. If you're checking out just the recap, click the link to see the full discussion. My man Will, crazy episode.